Hey, what's up, man?
Oh, nothing. Thanks for taking the time to do this. How's everything
No,
going out
thanks for
there?
having me on. It's going good. Can't complain.
Yeah.
Everything's shut down but the gym, so I'm happy about that.
Well, that's actually what we were going to talk a little bit about this today too as well. But let me go ahead and get the intro out of the way and introduce you a little bit, and then I'm going to let you further the introduction and talk a little bit. But guys, welcome back. This is episode 6 now of the Iron Sharpens Iron series. And Tony, what this is mostly about is it really kind of started off more from a physique angle, but I'm kind of expanding it upon anything related to physique or strength sports. I really want to dig into the minds of the people that I feel do things the right way in this industry, promote things the right way, train the right way, have really, really good, solid advice, and kind of get a little bit deeper under the surface of just like what's your training split, what's your diet like, things like that, and really kind of get into the psyche of the athlete, the coach, the educator, whoever it is I'm talking to. And you are you fit the mold of many different hats in this scenario. And I thought that you would be a really, really great guest to have on and that my audience could learn a lot from. Now, we've known each other for what, a little over a year, something like
Yeah,
that.
just about that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny how fast time flies. But Tony actually came to do a campus visit at USF where I was I think I was in my second semester at that point of grad school. And you are coming next year, right?
Correct. I will be there.
Yes. That's so exciting. Our program is just pumping out amazing people that are
Yeah.
going on to do some great things in this industry. So I'm really happy that you chose USF. I think you're going to be a great addition. But Tony came down for a site visit, campus visit, whatever, where we got to talk a little bit and we kind of stayed connected throughout that. And I actually did a podcast with him on his podcast, which I'll link all the information below for everybody. So go back and check out that talk because that was a really good talk. But Tony is a Marine veteran. Marines, yeah.
Correct.
And obviously I was Army, as you guys know. And he is a powerlifter. You dabbled in bodybuilding too for a while. You own a gym. You're a coach. You're an influencer in many aspects. So you have a great history and great story to bring to everybody. So whatever I missed in the introduction, please feel free to expand upon a little bit.
Yeah, no, definitely. Thanks for having me on. I've accumulated those things just because I'm old, is really what it comes down to. As you get older, you start to accumulate a bunch of stuff, injuries included. But yeah,
Oh
I
yeah.
spent some time in the Marines, and then as soon as I got out of the Marines, I went to school at Florida Atlantic University, studied exercise science there, and then opened up a gym once I finished with school, and then had that gym running in Port St. Lucie, Florida, for roughly like 3 or 4 years. Got rid of that and just started moving and traveling, and that's when I got into. When I got out of the military, I got into the strength sports. I did strongman at first, and then did a stint of like endurance type stuff, and then got into powerlifting and I've been powerlifting ever since. And now I'm transitioning into different phases of my life and not really focused so much on powerlifting, doing other things, growing my businesses. Like you said, I own a gym, I own a coaching service, I own a supplement company.
I forgot about the supplement company too. Thanks for reminding me about that.
Yeah, no, not a
Great
problem.
supplements, by the way. You guys have that
Thank you.
nootropic.
Yeah.
You sent me that package to test out, and guys, he has this nootropic that not only works, but it's this like Starburst, the
Yeah,
Starburst
pink
flavor,
Starburst.
right?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, guys, this thing. Just a side note, if you guys are watching this and you are into supplements and things like that, you know how you pour like pre-workout or anything kind of in a shaker and you shake it up and it's all foamy. This does not. Subject Zero does not have that. The nootropic,
Yeah.
it dissolves real quick. It has a great taste. If you guys like Starburst candy, you're gonna love it. So, sorry, that was my plug
Oh,
for
that's
your
awesome.
company.
Thank
So,
you. I appreciate that. Everyone tells me I'm a horrible salesperson because I never plug my stuff. But
well,
yeah,
I'm a
so
businessman at heart, so you got me to help you. All right.
yeah. So now, like I said, transitioning into more of the academic setting and getting away from the hands-on coaching and that aspect of things. I did that for over a decade, and um, so couldn't have done any of that really without Kaylee, my significant other, who's been helping me along the way with the businesses and all that other stuff. It's very funny. I noticed that your wife owns started a baking company, and then
Yep.
Kaylee started a baking company. There's a lot of like transcendence in terms of military, then why I start baking companies, but we're all into fitness, and it's funny how that works out.
Maybe when you guys get down here, maybe those two can link up as well. And
That'd be
it's
awesome.
definitely going to be nice having you down here, not only just from a training partner standpoint, another friend down here, but somebody that I just really respect, somebody that's been through a lot of the same situations I've been in, military, transitioning out of that, which is actually something I want to talk about a little bit. I want to get into kind of your psychology a little bit, how you approach things, how you approach your training, your nutrition, all that. But let's start there. Let's start with the transition from the military out, because it was not that simple for me.
Yeah.
It was it was a pretty rough transition, and I still, 6.5 years later, still feel at times like it's not a smooth transition. So did you know, getting out of the military, that you first of all wanted to kind of go this route that you've been going the last few years, or did you have something else planned in mind?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I definitely knew this is what I wanted to do in some aspect. Whenever I was spending some time in Iraq, I did a
Mm-hmm.
tour in Fallujah, and you get a lot of free time. So there's a lot of research that went into it, and you know, the military. I mean, I played sports in high school and stuff, but the military was one of those places that really influenced me in terms of like wanting to be a better person for the people around you.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have your brothers and your sisters there that rely on you to support them, to have their back, and to be the person they expect you to be. So that's a big burden to have on your shoulders. And for me, I took that very seriously. I did a lot of research. I studied a lot about performance and tactical performance and things of that nature, and just really fell in love with the whole aspect of kind of transforming your body and performing at a high level under high demand, which
Yeah.
we did out there. So I love that. I thought that would be the route, like to do strength and conditioning and to coach athletes and to go in that favor. But through the years of school and talking to people, I realized that it might not be the best route to go if you're not a fan of like really bad pay and super long hours and people taking
Yeah.
advantage of you. It
Yeah,
may
guys,
not be
being a
the
strength and conditioning coach for like a university or a minor league team, it's not as glorious as you might think it is.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
it's
so
not at all glorious.
no, not at all. And then when you talk to like the really good strength and conditioning coaches, the level of frustration that goes along with dealing with the actual sports coach who thinks they're a performance coach is something that would make you just rip your hair out. So I decided to not do that. And then but yeah, the strength and conditioning, exercise science, like that's something that I've always loved to do ever since the magazines of the bodybuilding magazines and reading all that stuff. Then I found Elite FTS, which is a little bit more up my alley in terms of
Right.
content, and I found Joe DeFranco, who's a very well-known strength and conditioning coach up in New Jersey. Actually spent a couple weeks at his facility just learning and kind of asking him questions and bugging him and as much as I could.
And
And
that's really important. I don't mean to interrupt you, but for anybody that's listening to this, like, you have to be willing to put yourself out there and to go places to learn these things from people. I mean, I'm very fortunate here in Tampa, and you'll find down here we have a lot of great people in the area,
yeah,
right? But probably where you were, there wasn't, and you put yourself in that position because you knew uh, you needed to grow, right? So
yeah,
you were willing to do what you needed to do in order to do so, and seek out those mentors, seek out those people that can teach you the right way. Whereas today, I think there's a lot of people that are trying to start up businesses on Instagram and all this stuff, and they really don't have that foundation. And that
right.
foundation is what you need. It doesn't matter if you have to travel 1,000 miles on the other side of the country to go do it. If you're passionate about it, you're going to go do it. And I think that speaks a lot for what's gotten you to this point right now, is just that even small little sacrifice you made then set the tone for what you've been doing since.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it wasn't like, I contacted Joe and I got whoever was working for him messaged me back. So there was no like real talk to actual Joe to be like, hey, come up here,
Oh,
it'll be
yeah.
great to have you, I'll mentor you a little bit while you're up here. It was like, no, I literally contacted them, paid for the week. I think it was like $150 or $200 just to train there for a week, like an athlete. I had
Yeah.
one of his assistants training me, and then they saw that I was strong, and then they moved me to their NFL Combine group so that I can learn.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it took me like 4 days to like connect with them and like finally get put into the status of, okay, we know you're taking it seriously, we'll allow you to enter into
Yeah.
our realm. So, and being in the military, like that's what we've learned to accept, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
you don't
You have
just
to prove
show up
yourself.
and yeah, you don't just show up and everyone's like, hey, welcome, this is everything you need to know. It's like, no, you have to earn your stripes, and you have to
Yeah,
prove that you're worthy of people to put their time and effort into you, because there's so
absolutely.
many flaky people out there that if you try to invest in everybody you meet, you're going to waste a lot of time. And I think that's something that's neglected nowadays is, if you have somebody that wants to pay their dues, they think like you're being an asshole, and it's, you're bullying them, or you're doing something, you're hazing them
Right.
or something like that. And it's like, no, we just want to make sure that you're serious about what you want to do, and that you have a work ethic, and that you're not
Yep.
expecting these hand me outs, But yeah, but I always knew that that's what I wanted to do. But transitioning out of the military was something that I was just not like prepared for at all. Like I knew what I wanted to do. I got out, went to school. That all that stuff was easy. Dealing with the lack of camaraderie, dealing with that community,
Mm-hmm.
and not having that support anymore. That was the absolute hardest thing. I still have issues. Like a decade later, I still think about like, man, spending time with those guys was some of the best time of my life, and you'll never
Absolutely.
have that camaraderie with someone that is willing to take a bullet for you, is willing to risk their life for you, and you learn and you grow through all these hardships of training that you fucking hate at the time, and you think like, this is bullshit, why are we doing this? And you suffer together, and through that suffering
Right.
you build this friendship and this camaraderie, and there's nothing like that in the civilian sector. So that's something that I've had the biggest issue with, and thankfully, like the lifting community has been a support in that aspect,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of finding people that you can relate to and hang out with and build a bond with. But it's, it'll never be the same, right? Like,
No.
it's great to talk to military people. I find that like martial arts is kind of like that a little bit too. They kind of, you got to kind of earn your stripes. They talk shit to you a little bit. Friendly talking shit, right?
Right.
One of the things that in the military you learn is, the more somebody makes fun of you, the more somebody picks at you, the more they actually respect you and like you and want to help you. They
Yeah,
just,
because they're not going
that's
to give
just
you the time of day if they don't
right, exactly.
respect you. Right.
Yeah, yeah. So
And it's funny what you said about just the lifting community and stuff. I think that's what. Now I was already a big fan of bodybuilding. I already loved lifting before going in the military, but I think that's what I really clung on to afterwards as well, is just being in a place, the gym, where everybody is, okay, not everybody, but there's a lot of people in there working their ass off, right,
right.
for a goal. And that was a very driving, very motivating environment to be in. And it was a very natural environment. It was
Yeah.
very natural because that was my life before the military. And then during the military, obviously, like you said, that's a very big part of it. And then afterwards, it's just continuing that drive and putting yourself in an environment where um, demanding more out of yourself is normal.
Right.
And you don't see that a lot in the civilian sector anywhere else. You don't even really see it that much in gyms anymore either, but you have a better opportunity. But I've had the hardest time, I shouldn't say that now, but when I first got out, I had the hardest time connecting with people because
Yeah.
you just don't you're not thinking the way that they think anymore. The little things that bug them, that irritate them, that they complain about, you're like, are you fucking serious?
Right. Yeah, for sure.
And so
Definitely.
it made me bitter for a while. And
Yeah.
until you go to an atmosphere like you're saying, the gym, and you start connecting with other people that are somewhat like-minded and have maybe not the same goal, but the same drive, that really helped me as well. So now you mentioned Elite FTS, and I
Yeah.
want to get to that. You are sponsored by Elite FTS now, right?
Correct.
Yep. And that happened like mid-summer last year?
It was like a month after being in Tampa. We spent a week or two out in
That's
Ohio.
right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it
Yeah.
was like
So,
March or April, somewhere around that time frame.
okay. So tell me a little bit about that experience, because I am a big fan of Elite FTS. Dave Tate is awesome. All the guys there and everything. What was that process like, as far as connecting with them, being brought on to their team? Because that's a very exclusive team to
Yeah,
be a part of. That's
for
not
sure.
like, it's not like these supplement company affiliates where you can just pretty much be a tier one. Like, if you're
Right.
on the Elite FTS team, there's a lot that goes into that. There's a lot of respect that they have for you. There's something that they see in you. How did that all come about?
Yeah, man, I remember, let's see, I think it was like 2011 or 2012. I was a pretty high level strongman competitor, and I thought I was pretty smart. I've written a few articles for them, and they were like, "Oh, we're gonna sponsor some athletes. Apply here." So I applied, didn't hear anything. They sponsored their athletes. That was like a continuous trend for, I think I applied 5 times to be a sponsored athlete. And
Okay.
yeah, so it wasn't like a, one and done situation. I kind of had to continue. And every time I made it a little bit further in the process, and they don't really tell you about, they don't contact you and be like, oh, you're top 10, but talking to
Right.
Dave, he told me that every time I made it a little bit further in the process, and they vent you out a lot because Dave built Elite FTS, and he's very passionate about it. So he wants to bring on people that are going to be a good beacon of light for what they're trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
So they vet you out a lot, and they ask the teammates, do you think this person will be a good addition? And yeah, they had a seminar last year. It was like a sports summit seminar, and I really wanted to go. One, because I've never met Dave. I wanted to check out the Elite FTS and meet Dave. And two, one of the people I really look up to in the industry, Buddy Morris, who's the strength and conditioning coach for the Arizona Cardinals. He
Yeah.
was going to be out there, and I wanted to meet him. I wanted to listen to him speak, and also the members of Elite FTS that I'm friends with, get to meet them in person. So flew out there, and while that was going on, they were doing the application process for sponsorships and stuff like that. So I applied again, and it just like happened to work out pretty good, to where like Dave didn't know I was coming to the seminar, and as soon as he found out, he was gonna wait to give me the T-shirt and say that I'm a part of the team there, and
Yeah.
uh, and it worked out great, man. It's definitely an honor and a privilege. That's a company and a group of people that I've looked up to, and I've relied upon a lot within the industry to learn a lot of stuff, to perfect my craft, and yeah, to be a part of the team. I'm on as a coach slash columnist, which
Mm-hmm.
is good because I'm not a very good athlete anymore. So it makes sense to be a coach and a columnist, to be able to write and pretend that I know stuff. But yeah, so it's been an honor and a privilege, and that's my role with the company, and it just took a bunch of tries, and continue to refine the process, and not get upset about like denials, and to not
Right.
quit, and moving forward. And that's always been something that the military has taught me as well. Is failure is inevitable. You're going to fail more times than you succeed, but you should
Yep.
never give up. You should always push forward if it's truly what you want to do, if it's truly your passion.
Yeah, and that perseverance, I mean, that shows. I mean, if you guys are watching this and you're trying to figure out how to become a sponsored athlete, just be aware that you're probably going to get denied quite a bit.
Yeah.
But that's going to be a true testament of how bad you want it. What are some things that you would suggest to people that are seeking to, become a sponsored athlete by either a supplement company or Elite FTS or something like that? What do you think made you stand out as opposed to some of the other applicants?
Well, over the years, I've submitted articles for them. So I've
Oh yeah, you said that. Yeah.
Yeah, I've given them content. I've also bought their equipment. I've supported them, and I think
That's
that's really
huge.
important. Yeah, you can't expect a company to support you if you've never support them. And trust me, when you apply for a real sponsorship, they will look at that. They will look to see how many purchases you've made. How do you support them? And that's something that's really important to think about. Because if you're not buying products from the company, then why would you really want to be sponsored by them to begin with, right?
Right. You have to bring value to them.
Right.
It doesn't matter if you're hot shit and you got 100,000 followers, whatever. You have to be able to provide something back. So if you're someone that's watching this, your dream is to be a sponsored athlete, whether or not you're a bodybuilder, powerlifter, whatever it is. Stop thinking about what they can do for you and start thinking about what you can do for them. And that's going to help you stand out a little bit.
Yeah.
So I do want to get into training a little bit. You are very intelligent when it comes to programming, in my opinion. You have a really, really good outlook and approach to training. What or who really kind of shaped the way that you go about programming for yourself and for other people right now? Like, how did you develop this methodology and this philosophy of coaching that you incorporate?
Yeah, the same way I've done almost everything is like I've traveled to places, lived at places, and learned from the best. So I moved to California for 4 years. And out of those 4 years, I trained with Dan Green for a year and a half. And
Really?
he's one of the
Nice.
best powerlifters out there, one of the smartest guys when it comes to powerlifting and thought process. And Andrew Herbert, they have all-time world record holders at their gym. And then once I did my time there, I went up north a little bit in California and started training with Jesse Burdick and learned a lot from Jesse Burdick, and then moved to Portland and started training with Chris Duffin and learned a lot. And along the way, I've just always refined what I was doing by reading as much as I could, reading a lot of the Russian text and reading a lot of, Tudor Bompa and Isurin, like block periodization type stuff, and just continuing to work on things and refine my craft as much as I can. And that's really, really what it is. Just a bunch of trial and error and reading and talking to people and figuring out what works best for you. And then now it's a little bit more refined, thinking about, the function of the human body, how it functions, and then programming that way so that your program includes the functioning of the muscles for the accessories. So you don't have to add in as many prehab prescriptive stuff or things like that. So it's more of a fully encompassed thought process of trying to make sure that the exercise selection that you do pick is conducive to what they have going on as far as like injuries and balances and stuff like that. But yeah, that's just really what it is. Just spending years learning from people and asking questions and continuing to read and learn. I try to read at least an hour every day. And that's just how I've always done it.
That's quite a who's who list.
Yeah.
That you have gotten to train with. I'm sure many of the listeners and stuff are going to know those names, but if you don't, you need to know those names that he just mentioned, especially if you are in the powerlifting game, right? Like those guys they're at the top of the list of people I would definitely suggest you guys going to follow. And Tony got to train with them. So that's really important too to touch on, is that you got to experience many different, now, although they are all very top elite lifters, each one of them is going to have a little bit of differences to them. And you are able to trying to, take little bits and pieces from Dan, from Andrew, from all these guys, from Duffin, and throw them all together into your pot. You can kind of take the best of each scenario, and that doesn't happen overnight.
Right.
That's something that takes a lot of time, but it also is a reflection on you and your willingness to, how am I trying to say this? Your willingness to not think that you know it all, right?
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people that are younger than us. I mean, I'm 35. You're what,
34.
34. Okay. So there's a lot of people in their early 20s that are starting in this game that have the magic program and all this stuff that they're promoting. It's like, guys, we're in our mid 30s and we don't even have all the answers yet. Like, you have to be willing to be humble and realize, I don't know this. I'm going to go seek out people that do. And that's what makes you a great athlete. That's what makes you a great coach, great business owner moving forward. So definitely listen to that advice, because there's a lot of people that, like, they'll DM me and stuff, and they're like, how did you get started in coaching? How are you where you're at right now? And I'm like, well, I sought out mentors. Yeah. I coached a lot of people for free for a long time.
Yes,
like,
for sure.
And it just doesn't seem like that that ability exists anymore for a lot of people. So it's really good that you said that, and really pointed out the fact that you moved around, you sought out these people that you respected, and took a little bit of everything that you learned from them. Now, I think we talked a little bit about it on your podcast, just like your nutritional approach. You're pretty big into calorie cycling, aren't you?
Yeah, definitely. I learned that from Justin Harris. I worked with him for quite a bit of time. Him and Shelby Starnes, and they're really big into the calorie cycling, and it worked. It makes sense, and I enjoy it. I like it.
Yeah, it's something that I'm experimenting a little bit more with now, and I definitely am an advocate of it. Now, let's talk a little bit. You came out of the military. You started doing powerlifting. How did the bodybuilding come into play? When did that all kind of transition and take place?
Yeah, man, it's just like it's more of a psychological thing, right? Like I've always been growing up kind of a little bit chubbier, a little bit fatter, never really liked what I saw in the mirror. So the idea of being super lean and bodybuilding, it always appeals to me in chunks at a time.
Right.
because it's incredibly hard to do, and that's not really my mentality to maintain that type of militaristic approach to 24/7. That's why I enjoy the powerlifting and the strongman, and just focusing on being strong. But it comes a lot of times when there's a transition period. Like when I was moving from strongman, I felt like I accomplished a lot in strongman. I wanted to move on, and there was that gap of like, well, what do I want to do next? And that's when I hired Shelby Starnes the first time to help me with nutrition and get lean, and I worked with him and learned a lot. And then I got into like endurance racing and endurance type stuff for like a year, because for some reason I'm pretty good at it. I don't know why, but
it's the military.
I've always been decent at it.
There's a lot of running we do, man. A lot of running we do.
For sure. And then I got into powerlifting, and then as I started to like kind of get bored with powerlifting, I was like, oh, maybe I should try bodybuilding again and see what happens. And that's when I started working with Austin Stout, and I just have a lot of respect for it. And it's something that I don't think that I'm capable of doing. So I like to challenge myself in that aspect. Like I know how hard it is. I know what it takes, and I know that it's gonna really mess with me mentally, because once the numbers on the bar start dropping, and I'm like, I'm not as strong. It's very hard to put your ego aside, and so that's kind of the dilemma I've always faced was, as soon as I started to get too weak, I would be like, no, this is not really what I want to do. And this last time working with Austin, things really just didn't work out with my body. It just, every time we made adjustments, the opposite would happen. And I got down to like 2,000 calories, and I wasn't close to where I needed to be, and knowing how many calories we'd have to pull away from that. And it just wasn't a healthy thing to do, considering it was just like something I wanted to do in my off season before I started powerlifting again, right? It was just kind of
Right.
like a fun thing to try. And so I guess that's always the gist behind it, is like just wanting to be lean and always chasing that, because I've never really had that psychologically.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then now it's gravitated to like, this is something that just seems like it's really hard. It would be a really good challenge to accomplish. And but the hardest thing for me to wrap my head around with bodybuilding is there's just no performance aspect to it. And for someone who's been an athlete my whole life, playing football, then playing rugby, then always competing in sports where you won based off of how you performed, not how you looked. That's been the hardest thing to mentally wrap my head around when it comes to bodybuilding and thinking about like committing to serious time and effort into it.
Mm-hmm. So there, yeah, you're talking about that objective goal, like that
Right.
objective goal, yeah. And that can be really tough. I definitely understand what you're saying about that. I think when I think about bodybuilding and the performance goals, I think of it as, um, how many inches can I add to my arm, right? Can I
Right.
add that half an inch this off season? Can I, add that inch to my quads that I want by next, all that stuff. But it is a different approach. It's a different mentality. And I guess that's a good segue into going back to powerlifting a little bit, because that is your forte. That is strength stuff is more of what you enjoy, what you've excelled at. When you are in a prep, when you are preparing for this competition, whatever it may be, I'm sure you've done more competitions than you can count in your life.
Yeah.
Um, how does your mindset shift and make that the primary focus and priority in your life? And how do you deal with everything else outside of it? Because for you to compete at a high level and perform at a high level like you do, there is no balance, right? Like
Right.
at that particular time, I don't want to say maybe that's the most important, because I think family is always going to be most important. But for that particular time, that is right there, filling up the majority of your priority list. How do you navigate between turning it on for prep and for that competition, and then coming out of it? Because I think that's something that a lot of people struggle with is, um, when you need to actually start preparing for a competition, whether it be powerlifting, bodybuilding, they have a hard time shutting out all that other stuff in their life,
Yeah.
right? And that can really bleed over and affect your training. And if you want to compete at a high level, you have to understand that there's not going to be balance in your life. You have to put this maybe even ahead of your family at times. Um, but then I also see that people get very focused in on that, and they have a hard time transitioning out of it.
Yeah.
So how do you deal with all that?
Yeah. Man, that's a really good question. I think I'm I'm very, very laid back, so dealing with stress is easier for me. Being
Okay.
able to manage things. I've always had like my management skills pretty good, pretty much on point. And it's kind of like Groundhog's Day. I get up at 5 a.m. every day and I go to bed at 9 every
Routine is
night.
important.
Routine's very important. And to be quite honest with you, like I've always approached things in terms of enjoyment and fulfillment. And I know not everyone thinks like that. Everyone thinks that there has to be suffering and there has to be this hardship in life to be successful. But if it's not fulfillment and it bringing joy to my life, and it's taken away from other parts of it, I just don't do it. So I
Okay.
never let it be as big of a thing as many people make it out to be, right? It's
So
just
it
lift.
sounds like your perspective, your mental
Yeah.
approach to it is what differs you from other people. You
Yeah,
see it as
because
you see it as a challenge, you see it as demanding, but you find fun in that. You find
right.
enjoyment out of the struggle.
Right. And I also don't like perpetuate the amount of time it actually takes, right? You lift weights for a couple hours, then you're done for the rest of the day. So
Yeah.
why on earth would that be like the continuous thought on your mind that dictates what you do? You know, there's so many people that
Yeah.
allow a sport to or a hobby to dictate um, the way they live their life. You know, and I've done that in the past too, right? But
Right.
now living out here where I live in Portland, it's like, man, when the summertime comes around, I don't care if I'm prepping or not. I'm going to be in the mountains hiking, like,
Yeah, I
and
see you guys go hiking a lot. I'm jealous,
yeah.
man. I love hiking.
And I don't care. I don't care how that affects my performance. I don't care if it, if it does. I think about health. I think about um, what am I really trying to accomplish? I also think about what are my genetic limitations. I'm not someone who has genetics to do this in a healthy manner to be at a high level. So I don't really push those things. I don't really care as much about like where
Yeah.
I stack up, because I know that there's levels to it. I know that there's so many people, especially in bodybuilding, where it's like if you don't have those genetics, you're pushing for 10, 20 years and you're taking years off your life health wise
Right.
for what? What's the point, right? And I know everyone can say you're just trying to be a better version of yourself, and that's great, right? But you don't want to be that person who continues to string things out to be a better version of themselves when you really had no purpose being in there, right? Like
Yeah.
if I was a 5'9" white guy, which I am, very, very unathletic now that I've powerlifted, but it's like if my dream was to play in the NBA and I just chased that for 15 years, knowing that I never had a shot to do it, well then, yeah, I've become a better basketball player every year for sure, but I'm chasing something that's not realistic and it's hampering the rest of my life and life's, as you know, being in the military and losing people, life's way too short to
Yep.
fixate on one thing that's not really bringing joy or fulfillment to the rest of your life. So for me, there's really no like this is prep mode and I'm taking it serious and everything else takes a back burner. It's like no, it's just I'm just going to the gym because that's what I love to do and that's what I was going to do anyways, and it just happens to be like, oh, there's a meet in 12 weeks. Let's just do that and have some fun, you know?
Yep. Well, and that's a there's another point I want to touch on, but you just said something also that um, you would be doing this no matter what. And I
Right.
think that there's a lot of people that get into competitions and um, whether it be bodybuilding, prep, or powerlifting, whatever, that are doing it for, I don't want to say the wrong reasons because everybody has their own reasons. It's fine, whatever. But I don't think that they fully would be doing it if there wasn't something else that's going to benefit them out of it, right? And it
Right.
sounds like I know there's a lot of people that I know that would be in the gym if there was never a competition to train for, if there was never a show to prep for, right? That's because that's what we love. That's our lifestyle.
Right.
But I think it's really important to go back to what you talked about at the very kind of beginning of this topic discussion. And it's, I kind of see there's two types of competitors or two types of people, maybe. One that is very laser focused in on whatever the task is, powerlifting, bodybuilding, it's very focused. And they think that is the approach that's going to get them to the top, which it does for a lot of people. But there's another type of athlete. There's another type of person that sees, well, if I'm happy and I'm, fulfilled in other aspects of my life, that's going to carry over and I'm going to have a better prep because of that as well. And
Yeah.
that sounds more like what you kind of adopt as your mentality. There is no right or wrong. It's all about figuring out as an individual who you are, what kind of things make you tick, what kind of things make you get ticked off, um, and just being able to apply that. So it's good to have role models, right? It's good to have people to want to emulate, want to pick information from, do stuff, but you have to figure out who you are and what's going to
Yeah.
work for you. I'm sure your coaching is the exact same way as mine is. We take every individual
Yep.
as an individual. They're an N of one, and you can't coach two people exactly the same. It doesn't
Right.
matter if they have the same stats, the same height, weight, body fat percentage, strength curve, any of that. everyone's going to have a different approach. And that's one really important thing that I think being in the military taught me, probably taught you, is that you deal with so many different people and you see those different personalities, and you kind of learn how to gauge people a little bit. But you also find out a lot about yourself during that too.
You
And I
have
think
to,
that's
yeah.
just as important as how you're going to set up your prep. Actually, you need to know more about yourself in order to figure out how you're going to set up your prep, because for you, going all in and being laser focused would probably be very counterproductive. You would grow to hate it, most likely. You probably would not do as well. You have these outside influences that keep you happy, keep you wanting to go back into the gym and give it your all during that 2 hours that you're in the gym, and kind of having that outside life to the gym. And a lot of people don't have that. A lot of people just have whatever it is they're training for, and that is life for 10, 12, 16, 20 weeks. And then they come out of it and they have a hard time transitioning out of it. But you don't seem to have that tough time, and I think it's because of your outlook.
Yeah, I think if you look back on a prep in any sort, and when you're done with it, there's parts of your life that you have to pick back up, then
Mm-hmm.
that tells me that it's not a good integration into your life. Like you see so many times that people, they'll go through a prep and they're like, oh, thanks to my girl for everything she's done. I was a real asshole to her, and now it's my time to make it up. It's like that's not really the way you should. That's not the way your
Yeah.
life should be. People shouldn't have to take a back seat because you're an asshole during prep. Maybe you should just quit prepping. Maybe you should just not be an asshole, right? Like,
Yeah.
those
It
those,
might not
those
be for you. It might not
right.
be. Yeah.
Exactly. If your life goes to shambles because of something that you're doing, really take the time to honestly think and assess and be like, is this really worth me doing it? Is this really the reason why I wanted to do this? Does this make my life better when I'm done with it? And if the answer is no, just understand that you're going to have continuous setbacks in your life, and you're never going to become the person that you truly can become, both mentally and physically, because you have to pick the pieces up, right? Like if your off
Yeah.
season is stressed out because you've had a prep that was, destroyed your life, and now your off season, you're putting it back together, you're probably not going to have the best off season. So you're probably going to go back into prep and
Sure.
looking like crap, and then you're going to do it. It's just like this perpetuating cycle that just continues to repeat itself because you haven't really found your true like center reason why you're doing it, and living in the moment, living in the now. And for me, that's one of the biggest things that I've done. I do a lot of meditation. I do a lot of in the now type of practice, and
Mm-hmm.
that's what drives me is like, man, like being on this call with you, it's like this is a great conversation. I tend to think so because I think highly of myself. But
No, and
but
this is why I wanted to start this series, is because I
right.
want to have people like you on that we can have conversations like this, because I don't think there's enough conversations like this being had.
Right, but it's the dynamic of like we're having this conversation. I'm enjoying it. I'm not on my phone looking at other stuff. I'm not
Mm.
like being distracted anywhere else. I'm truly in this moment having this conversation because this could honestly be the last conversation we ever had. You just don't know that.
You don't know.
So why not
Yeah.
enjoy it? And I think that's the way people should approach everything in their life, right? If like yes, things are going to be hard. Yes, it's not always going to be a perfect scenario where you're going to be full of excitement to do stuff. But if you start to look at the trends that it's bringing out, and the trends aren't really a prosperous one that is making you happy and enriching your life and the people around you in their life, then is it worth it? And that's something that I've
Mm.
always looked at. I've always tried not to be the over demanding asshole when it comes to getting ready for anything. If I'm not having fun, I'm just not going to do it anymore, and that's just the
Yeah.
way it is. And you can have fun in the struggle of a hard time too, right? Like prep's
Oh,
not fun.
yeah.
Prep's never going to be fun because
But
you're
you're going
you're
to learn a lot about yourself during it.
right. Yeah, because
Yep.
you're pushing your body to limits it's never been, and you have to find enjoyment and fulfillment within that struggle, because that struggle and that overcome of that struggle is life, right? Life is full of
Hmm.
adversity, and it's never going to be a scenario where you're just cruising along and life's just good and it stays good forever. There's ups and downs to it, and
Yeah.
I think if you can push through those ups and downs of prep and find enjoyment, you'll do the same thing with life. Everything's a learning experience as long as you allow it to be. You know, if
Yep.
you get crushed by things, or if you don't know how to handle things and you don't allow it to have a positive influence on your life, then you're missing out on a lot of life lessons. And I think that's one of the biggest takeaways from training, is there's so many life lessons within the concept of going to the gym and pushing and trying to test yourself, and being
Yeah.
able to take away all those lessons and putting it into your life can make you very, very successful and very, very happy.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I think that if someone's listening to this and they're going to embark in a prep of some sort, um, it is a choice you are making. Okay. It's not a choice your family's making. It's not a choice that your friends are making. It's not a choice that your
Right.
job is making. This is your choice. Do not take things out on them. You have to be able to have that escape and be able to separate yourself. Now, are you going to be tired? Are you going to be are you going to have some of these effects? Yeah, that does not mean that you need to treat people in your life like shit. Does not mean that you need to slack off at work. Doesn't mean any of that. Everything you do is a choice, and I think people lose track of that, lose sight of that a little bit, when they enter that very, laser focus mode.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you said all that. That's really good. And actually, it reminded me of. So I'm um, since I was 13 years old, I've been a huge Kobe Bryant fan. Kobe
Okay.
Bryant was my dude. He was only 5 years older than me. I was in middle school. I was a huge basketball player growing up. Heard about this kid in high school that was going to go, so I started following him, and he has been my dude since I was 13 years old. So for 22 years, his passing really hit me pretty hard on a lot of different reasons. But one of his famous quotes or sayings, kind of kept coming up a lot, and he talked about actually at his jersey retirement for the Lakers, a year or so after he retired. He's talking about the dream, right? He's talking about, you think you want to get to the championships, you want to get the All-Star, you want to get all these accolades, but that's not the dream. The
Yeah.
dream is everything that happens in between. The dream is the hours at the gym, 6 a.m., the time in the weight room, all this hard work. And you mentioned it, you learn a lot of stuff during a prep about yourself, right?
Yeah.
That's what a lot of people need to start focusing on. Is it's a little bit different in powerlifting. Obviously, there's an objective measure, right? Like who lifted the most weight. Bodybuilding, it's subjective. But either way, it doesn't matter. What's important is not your placing. What's important is what you learned along the way. And did you improve? Did you make yourself better? Did you help make other people around you better? In the case of team sports, things like that. And so that's a quote. That's something that he said that always stuck with me. And that's how I think about everything. That's how I thought about approaching grad school.
Yeah.
That's how I think about approaching my marriage. It's how I think about approaching bodybuilding and strength training. Is what am I learning along the way? It doesn't matter if I ever get, overall champion in a show or ever earn my pro card or anything like that. It's great. That is definitely something to shoot for. But what did you learn along the way about yourself? And I think that's what's helped me grow a lot. Sounds like that's
Yeah.
what's helped you grow a lot. So that's really good. So I do want to kind of touch on just some nuts and bolts a little bit real quick. I won't keep you too much longer, but what are your totals? What are your best lifts? And what is your goal moving forward here? I know you're going to be coming down here for school pretty soon,
Yeah.
which is also going to be great. We're probably going to have a lot more opportunities to put out content, which is awesome. But do you have any competition goals coming up, or is it simply looking forward to the next phase of your life with education and just lifting for fun?
Yeah, so best total is 2006 pounds. I compete in the 242 class, and that's in reps. So it's a 782 squat, 512 bench, and a 722 deadlift. Those are my best lifts. Those weren't necessarily done all at the same time in competition.
Right.
But yeah, 2006 pound total is my best total in competition. Yeah, right now, man, it's just about trying different things, having fun, and allowing my priorities to shift more towards growing my businesses, growing, going to school, focusing on that 100%, and doing the best I can, because I want to be fully committed to Professor Campbell's lab, and to Professor Buckner's lab, and just being there, and not really having like the idea of competitions dictate my life, and how I train. If I feel strong and I feel like I want to compete, then I'll do that. If not, then I'll just keep lifting, and
Yeah.
try to be a little bit healthier too. Like, the hardest thing about a lot of the stuff that we do, because I'm not a natural athlete, is we tend to push our bodies to the limit with everything,
Yep.
drugs especially, and you don't really know what that's doing to your body, right? You don't know the ramifications of
Right.
that until later on, and I'm finally to the point where it's like, man, I just don't want to really have to deal with that anymore. So it's like trying to reduce everything down to bare minimum, so that I can still
Hmm.
be a functioning human, and trying to get healthy, and adding in cardio, and everything's a new perception of where my strength is now. I'm not going to be the
Right.
unhealthy guy that can squat 800 pounds but can't really bend over to tie his shoe. I just don't
Yeah.
see the purpose of that anymore. So the goal is to try to just lose some weight, get healthy, but still continue to power lift. And if there's a competition coming up that looks fun, I'll do it and see what I can do. And that's just the kind of the where I'm at right now. Just different, different part of my life, different point in my life with different priorities. So
Hmm.
it's fun, and it's a nice, refreshing new, like, outlook. It's like the next part of my life is moving on, and I enjoy being able to take all the aspects of the serious competitive years, and putting
Hmm.
that into growing my business, and growing who I am as a person, and being able to go to school, get my master's, get my PhD, and hopefully be able to teach and do research is the ultimate goal.
That's awesome, man. And you're gonna. It's weird sitting here talking about you coming down to the program, because it just seems like it went by so fast for me. Like
Yeah, it flew
I
by, man.
I'm sitting here like realizing like I'm never gonna get to be a part of Campbell's and Buckner's lab anymore. Like
It's true, yeah.
that was some of the best. I actually even started in Campbell's lab like a whole year before I started with the program. I was just
Yeah.
volunteering. Luckily there's still a couple papers that are being published, but I got to be a part of like four different
Yeah.
that are going to be published studies. Dr. Buckner came on right when my class started, so we were his first full class to go through, and I've grown really close to him. He's got a really, really great vision for his lab there and what he wants to do, and something I wish. It's kind of a double-edged sword. I wish I was still there, but at the same time,
Right.
I'm glad school is over with. But
For sure.
the education never stops. That's the point. And the connections, I still reach out and talk to them a lot. And so I'm really looking forward to what you're going to get to experience there, what you're going to get to be a part of. And it's going to be a whirlwind couple of years there for you. But it's going to
Definitely.
be it's going to be a
Yeah.
fun couple of years. And I'm just really glad to have you down here in the Tampa area soon. When are you heading down here?
Um, Man, that's a tough one now with everything that we have going on, with the coronavirus stuff.
Yeah.
But I had a couple seminars scheduled, and the last one is going to be in Seattle at the end of July. So it just kind of makes sense to be up here until then, because it's an easy travel. And then probably like after July, is it June? I think, yeah, it might be the end of June. So maybe July or August I'll be coming down there.
Okay. Nice,
Yeah.
nice, man. Well, I'm looking forward to it. As we wrap up here, thank you for sharing everything. I think this is a really great conversation. I hope a lot of people get stuff from this. Where can people find you? You want to talk about your supplement company a little bit? Whatever you want to do. This is your time right here.
All right. It always seems like whenever I go on shows, I never actually get to talk about nutrition or training, but that's cool. That's all right. Um,
Oh,
if you
don't worry.
want,
We're going to be doing a lot more once you get
all
down
right,
here. So
sounds good. sounds good. People just like, man, this guy just talks and he never talks about training or anything. He's probably a fraud. And it's like, you're probably right. But
I
yeah,
can
you
attest,
can
guys. He is not a fraud.
you can follow me on social media, Tony Montgomery Jr. Through any of the realms, but I'm active on Instagram and Facebook a little bit. I do have a podcast called Beyond the Platform. It's mostly strength athletes, but I do interview bodybuilding coaches here and there because I think they're brilliant. But it's just yeah, I mean, it's fun talking to them. And then the supplement line is called Subject Zero Supplements. Right now, we have a full spectrum health supplement that supports liver, heart, kidneys, and blood glucose, and just a bunch of other stuff. Uh, Free nootropic that we're very happy with because adding the mushrooms and all the stuff and getting it to taste good is extremely hard to do, but I'm glad we have it out there. It kind of goes along with what we're trying to build within that brand of health guides performance. So a lot of these companies put out these pre-workouts that are full of caffeine, and people take them at night while they go to train, and they don't really have an alternative, and they can't sleep, and so it's just a bad pattern to get into. So we have a sleep aid that focuses on the dopamine and the serotonin, so kind of more of natural releases to help you sleep. And then the stim-free nootropic can help you as a college student studying late at night, or anybody training late at night, to be able to have that focus without the stems in it, so that it doesn't interfere with your sleep. And we have 3 new products coming out here shortly that we'll be releasing, so you can follow that at subject zero underscore subs. Yeah. On Instagram, we post a lot of stuff there.
I'll tag everything below so they'll be able to find it. So
yeah, awesome.
Yeah,
and then
actually, I think another really good topic later on at some point is to talk about that process of starting a supplement company and all that. I think that'd be really interesting for a lot of people to hear about. So
for sure, yeah, it'd be good because that's a lot of luck, and for me at least, I don't know how other people do it, but yeah. And then coaching, we do training and nutrition. Myself and Kaylee, who is an IFBB pro and a top tier powerlifter. Her, not me. I'm mediocre at best. So we do that. That's at teamphoenixperformance.com. And that'll also be where we do seminars. Myself and my partner Trevor Jaffe. We do a podcast along with Beyond the Platform. We're doing coaching seminars and stuff like that. The next one hopefully will be in Chicago. Who knows? It's April 11th. Fingers crossed that it'll still be going on. Then
things are so up in air right now.
I know, it's crazy. Then June, we have 2 seminars, one in Seattle, one in Boston. Fingers crossed that those go through. But yeah, it's kind of everything that, if you guys want to keep up, that's what I have going on.
Well, I really appreciate it, man. You guys stay safe out there. Can't wait to get you down here in Tampa, connect a little bit more. And yeah, this was a great talk. I'm looking forward to more in the future. So enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy the weekend. I'm sure you're probably going to be quarantined like most of us.
Yeah, definitely, man. Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, and have a great weekend yourself.
All right, man. You too. I'll talk to you soon.
All right.
Bye.